Hello. And so what I've decided to do is actually break this down into little pieces so that you can reference these little pieces whenever you need, rather than having long videos where I have to look through the whole thing to find what it is that I'm looking for or I'm having trouble with. And so this first one is going to be about proxies and interpreting, okay? Interpreting and proxies. Now, what I'm noticing is Premiere is giving me a few fits because Premiere really wants to, oops, that's the wrong thing. Premiere wants to update to the new version, something I haven't done yet. Yeah, if I look, yeah, I've got, now they've added some sound effects, which is great for all of you since you have access to a lot of that stuff. Music and sound effects are part of the Adobe stock. And you now, there's a whole new version of Premiere Pro, which is 25. So I'm not going to update yet. I'm going to wait until after I get some of these videos done. So that we're all kind of on the same sheet of music. And I know that the lab isn't going to get updated until Christmas break, winter break, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to create a new project. Okay, I'm going to call this one Fireworks. Okay, this is where it's going to build, which is fine. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to build it inside of the folder I created specifically for this particular project. So that should be under Fireworks. There we go. So what I did is I made a folder and I drug a whole bunch of JPEGs and a couple clips in. Let me kill that. That was from me practicing. So I have 2 clips in there and then just a whole bunch of stills, as if I'm going to be putting this video together. And I'm probably going to be using these pieces in a lot of these tutorials since they are actually big enough to be able to pull this off. All right. And so I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to just put my Premiere project in here. Okay. And I'm going to create. Okay. So I've created it. This is just a big, fancy, empty Premiere window. We've been here before. You can drag files in. I'm going to go ahead and import media. But what I want you to do is just import your movie clips, okay? Whatever you happen to be wanting to use. Let's leave the stills out of it because of what this particular section is about. This particular section has nothing to do with stills, so we're going to leave all these JPEGs alone. And I'm going to go ahead and import those, and now they're down here in my project window, okay? And what I want you to notice is that these have slightly different frame rates, okay? Showing what the duration is, okay? And all sorts of other stuff in there, and it's telling me what the aspect ratio is, okay? So one of them is really a lot smaller, okay, than the other one. And we're going to go ahead and pretend that these are both really huge files, and we're going to convert them both to the same frame rate and the same aspect ratio. Okay? Now, before you do anything else, you need to be absolutely sure that you have Adobe Media Encoder installed. You need that to do the interpreting of the documents, okay, or the clips. So be sure that that is installed before you go any further. Okay, so when you bring things into Premiere, it assigns settings such as res, frame rate, manual, but there's times that you actually want to manually adjust it. Okay, and so I'm going to do these one at a time. So here's this one. Okay, now if I wanted to give it a name, I could, but I'm not going to go do that right now. Not for this. Okay, and I right-clicked on it, and I'm going to scroll down. And I'm going to scroll down to Interpret. It's Modify. Modify. I went scooting right past it. Interpret Footage. So right-click, Modify, Interpret Footage. And then you're going to get the Modify Clip or Interpret Footage window. Now this is set at a frame rate of 29.97. I'm going to go ahead and make these both a 32 or a 30 frame rate, whatever I want. Either one should be fine. That's a normal animation frame rate. Don't worry about that. It's not a big deal. And now I'm going to deal with aspect ratio. And right now it's 1:1. I'm going to go ahead and convert it to HD anamorphic 1080. HD anamorphic 1080. And we're going to discuss aspect ratio in a different video, but that's what I'm going to interpret this as. All right. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell it. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same for this one. Oops, I keep clicking on things. Right click, modify, interpret footage. Assumed frame rate of 32 frames per second. Conform to HD anamorphic 1080, 1.33. Okay. So now they're at those, and it's not modifying the original file. None of this is going to actually change until the video is encoded, okay? Until you actually create and export the overall video, nothing happens. It makes that interpretation during that particular sequence, all right? But you definitely need the media encoder for it to be actually very happy. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to pretend that these are really, really huge files. All right, so when you have really, really large video files with high frame rates, high resolution, large aspect ratios, and serious sound sampling, you will probably need to create proxies. Okay, so what it does is it helps with your editing speed, especially if you're on a computer that maybe doesn't have quite the latest video hardware acceleration or software acceleration. So it can really help you deal with these really large clips by creating kind of like little thumbnails. So that you're not dealing with all of this stuff going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to do both of these at the same time. So for me, I'm going to do both of them. What you want to do is go ahead and select both, well, however many videos that you need to go ahead and create proxies for. Okay. Now this may happen if you're running a 6K video at 60 frames per second or something crazy like that. And it's going to consume a ton of computer time and energy to show you that as a preview. All right, so what I'm going to do is I selected both of those and then right-click, Proxy, Create Proxies. Okay, so this window will be different depending upon which version of Premiere you're using. The older version has different resolutions of QuickTime available, like low res and high res. We're just going to leave it on ProRes QuickTime Proxy, and it's going to reduce the frame size by half, okay? And I'm turning on my watermark. Okay, but you can go ahead and do all sorts of different things with the proxies. All right, we're just going to keep it ProRes QuickTime Proxy, but we're going to apply a watermark that lets us know that we are using a proxy and not to worry about video quality when we're editing. Okay. Now, this is the location. Where are you going to put it? What it's going to do is create a proxy folder. So I'm going to tell it, OK. And then it's going to launch the Adobe Media Encoder, and it's going to go ahead and interpret all of that. Now, I have some serious hardware acceleration and software acceleration because Premiere is really designed for the multi-core Apple chips. And so I'm going to just sit here while it's doing it. One of them is probably going to take a little bit longer than the other one. Yeah, because one of the videos is actually about 30 minutes long, and it's the one that actually happens to be 1080. So it's going to probably take just a little while for it to actually go through that. But when this is all done, it doesn't actually attach the proxies depending upon which version of the software of Premiere that you're using, depending upon which operating system you're using, and so on and so forth. Because you can certainly use old versions of Premiere if your operating system doesn't support the latest version, okay? So if you're running an older version, you're going to end up having to manually attach it. And so we're actually going to manually attach it as soon as it's done, as if it doesn't automatically. The newer versions are supposed to automatically go ahead and attach these proxies when they're done. So now it says it's done encoding. So I'm going to quit the media. Don't need that anymore. Okay. So if I look at these now, I'm going to go ahead and switch to a different view. Now you will see that I have proxy icons. That means that the proxies have already been attached, but I'm going to go through the process of pretending like they aren't attached. All right. So all that means is right-click, back down to proxies, attach proxies. And there it is. It says, okay, this is the video that I want to attach a proxy. Okay. And I'm going to click the attach button. Be sure you are in your proxies in your browser here, and it automatically should go to that folder that it created. Okay. So it automatically generated this proxy folder for me in my fireworks folder. Okay, I need to select the one that I am going to have a proxy for and what the proxy is that I'm going to use. And I'm going to tell it, okay. Now I'll do the same thing for this one, even though I really don't need to. Just so you get practice doing that. It doesn't hurt to do it, okay? It's not like you're going to over-attach something. All right. Making sure it's the right place. There it is. It's the 0341. Be sure you select the right proxy or you're going to make yourself nutty. And if you need to unattach it and then reattach it to something else, that's fine. Now, what you'll notice is right now my proxies are on. That is not necessarily the case. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag these over. Oops. Come here, you. Oh, stop it. Okay, I'm going to switch to a different view so I'm not accidentally grabbing things. Okay, so I'm going to grab this. I'm going to drop it in here. Okay. And right now it says the proxy is on. Clicking here doesn't really change anything, all right? This is where your proxy button is, okay? Toggle your proxies, okay? Now the proxy is off. Now it's on. You can tell because there's a little icon there. We can do the same thing for the other one. So that was 341. So now I'm going to drag this one in. Okay. There's the proxy. Okay. And I'm going to toggle my proxy off on there as well. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it back on. The reason it's showing this right here is because the playhead is right there. So if I put it right here where the other video clip is, okay, there we go. Now also here, of course, you can see the audio files. Here it is. Okay, we're going to talk a bit more about audio files like, hey, how come it's defining this as an SFX preset? And how come this one happens to be an ambience preset? You'll also notice that stuff up here. We're going to talk about that when we deal more with sound. Now, if you do not have the proxy button, you may have to add it. All right. And so all you do is click on the little plus sign and go ahead and add the proxy button to your setup. Okay. So that's if it's missing. All right. And know that you can change how this thing sits anytime you want to. All right. So that was dealing with interpreting and proxies. So I hope that's helpful. It shouldn't be too big of a deal for the size of files that we're working on. But if you get out there and you start doing some heavy-duty editing, you may want to turn on and off your proxies and create proxies and do interpretation. Interpretation you probably actually want to do so that everything is going to be interpreted the same in the output. Okay, rather than assuming a certain output. We'll talk about creating sequences in a different video because that's a whole thing all by itself, dealing with sequences. And we'll talk about tools, and we'll talk about the tools that are also here on our timeline. Okay, and you'll wonder, hey, how come I haven't used these tools before? And it's like, well, because I wanted you to do things differently to start with. All right. Hope that was helpful.